Hello, and welcome to the Dive Site Podcast with Fat Guy Scuba, where we share stories, laughs, and everything scuba diving. Today, we're going to be talking about scuba firsts, those unforgettable first moments underwater. Whether it was your first breath on scuba, your first open water dive, or your first big underwater experience, we've all got a story to tell. So let's grab our dive gear and jump right in. Does everyone want to go around and say hi, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. This is Matt here. I've been diving for a little while. Recently working on some new training.
So you're doing tech training, right?
Yeah,
You started Tech 40.
Yeah, so I'm working on Tech 40 and kind of rolling into rebreather shortly after that. Got a decent amount of dives in the couple years, but yeah, there's been a lot of things that we've been working on, a lot of new experiences, and definitely a lot of things to talk about when it comes to firsts.
Hi, this is Missy, and I'm currently a master diver working towards my dive master.
Exciting.
Very.
Chris?
Hey listeners, my name is Chris. I'm currently an assistant instructor and one of the co-founders of Fat Guy Scuba.
And my name is DJ. I am also an assistant instructor and one of the founders of Fat Guy Scuba. So, like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about some firsts. So, Matt, why don't you start off? Tell us your scuba first.
Sure. So getting into scuba for me was a little bit of a difficult adventure, I'd like to say. Honestly, when I was approached by a friend of mine about wanting to get into scuba, I definitely had some reservations because I had a fear of drowning at that point, right? And it was a pretty scary thing for me. Talking about, first times, and one thing that comes to mind is, the first time putting in that regulator and jumping in the pool and checking that stuff out and taking those first couple breaths and just kind of realizing, it's not as big and scary as it seems to be, and just how comfortable and relaxing it can be just to kind of wash all the stress and everything away. But, going from that first adventure there and then, moving out to the first time out at the lake, that was pretty neat. That was pretty cool.
The lake is definitely a unique experience depending on when you get certified.
That's definitely a good way to put it for sure. Yeah, so we started out with 7 mils and the visibility was trash. It was not very good at all. But just doing those certifications, like anything that we kick up, it was just visibility just went to crap, and then we had to move to a different spot. But going through those exercises, first time pulling your mask and putting it back on and doing all that stuff underwater can be a little intimidating, but now it's just like,
Second nature.
Second nature for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I remember quite fondly. One of my best memories, I guess you could say, is first time out in the ocean, out in Catalina. So we went on a dive trip out to Catalina, and I just remember first time jumping into the ocean. It's like, holy cow, this is just,
Everything.
everything. And just putting your mask on and then looking into the water and going, oh, there's definitely a lot more to see down here than what meets the eye at the surface. Going through that kelp forest for the first time was just breathtaking.
Right.
And all the Garibaldi and first time seeing some eels and all the lobster, and it was a lot to take on. It was awesome. It definitely was super, super cool for sure.
Missy, what about you? What's your scuba first?
Oh, scuba first. The big first is that first drop into the lake, doing open water and being a drowning survivor. It was terrifying, right? Absolutely terrifying, especially because it was August, so the lake had like 4 feet of vids, but it was also, for as terrifying as it was also a huge empowering experience, right? I mean, whether you have water trauma or not, that initial drop in and pushing past yourself and pushing past these fears and stepping into, an ecosystem that isn't yours, right? And creating this new world and new life for yourself, because that's what's eventually happened with all of us, right? It's changed everything. So that first drop in it's such an important memory, and it's such an important event as a diver. I think regardless of where you do that first drop in at, and then having that moment and I, and sitting with it for a minute too, meaning, oh God, this is, this is real, this is happening. And then, even at the end of that first dive, immediately recognizing that I had this, traumatic event and now we're back in it, and immediately feeling at home under the water. And that happened so fast with such clarity too, it was home down there. And even though that's not where we're supposed to be, but that's where I felt more at home. That's where I belonged.
It's a very powerful thing because
It is.
everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what other things you've accomplished in life, every single diver starts with that first drop in to open water.
And that moment when everything in your brain and everything that you've been taught, you're going against that, right? You're going against that natural response to get yourself out of that situation, and pushing past yourself and creating this new version of yourself is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I agree. Chris, what about you?
Pretty much I can follow up on kind of some of Missy's thoughts there. For me, my scuba first would be probably my first scuba freak out. I could recall back, not even the 4 open water dives. That was nothing. And the first freak out for me happened on dive number 5. That was me and you in the middle of the lake going down to the 21 gun. Dive number 5, first deep dive, right out of open water certification. We're getting down to depth and stuff like that. And, the whole new environment, everything was totally new, experiencing depth. It might have been a little too deep, too fast at first, but, new environment. But yeah, getting down to the bottom where the boat was, descending down a line, start freaking out, hyperventilating, basically having an underwater panic attack because things are going through your head going, I don't belong here. Water's penetrating into my mask. So it's everything you expected to see in stress and rescue, but at dive number 5, you're not going through stress and rescue. So I think for me, by having that happen to me right then and there, that fast, it basically opened your eyes to things that could go wrong and how quickly and how fast they can go wrong. And, not 30 dives in, you realize that you experienced that on dive 5. And it's like, okay. But, all those drills that you go through, they don't prepare you for that. But luckily, when you have a dive buddy who recognizes what's happening and what's going on right now, you go through those emergency drills and stuff like that. So, once it was realized that I was in the middle of a freak out and a panic attack, emergency situations took over, and, between my dive buddy sitting over there, basically got me back to the surface and calmed myself down and, abandon that dive. But it was a very scuba first to say, okay, this is what's going on. And do I belong here? I asked myself that many times. Like, I don't know if I belong here. Now, years later and a megaton of dives later, I'm good. But just glad it happened that time and that quick.
But you recognize the situation and you call the dive, which takes just as much, if not more, courage than it does to do the dive itself, because you're recognizing that there's a situation, you're questioning yourself enough that you say, okay, I need to sit back and I need to reevaluate this and look at it outside of that panic, right? Outside of panic brain. And I'm assuming too that that's the first time you ever called a dive.
Yeah.
And that has enough of its own feelings.
My brain's going, it's time to bail and bail now.
Right.
So I was looking for the surface, but, I was kept in control and did things, the right way. That dive number 5, that was easy. Punch that inflator and bye-bye.
And I think it's good too, though. I think it's good too, though, that you did that, do I belong here? And I think we all kind of do that still. And I think we kind of should, is this dive where I belong? Is this circumstance where I belong? And no, because of what we do. It's fun as much as we love it and whatnot. It's still dangerous.
You can get messed up quickly
Fast.
if you are not careful and vigilant.
Yeah.
So what do you got, DJ?
My scuba first was about 10 years ago. When I was in school, a buddy of mine was working to become an instructor, and he was teaching at one of the shops out here and needed to do more pool time. And so he convinced me after several rounds of talking to come out and try scuba. And I didn't really think it was for me. I love being in the water. I like swimming. I like being in the pool and stuff, and just never really thought that scuba was going to be a thing. I came out and did it the first time and absolutely fell in love with it in the pool. That was the coolest thing ever when I got to put all the stuff on and be underwater breathing. That was it for me. I was hooked then.
I didn't know that you tried it that long ago.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
I have wanted to get certified ever since and just couldn't afford to, time, money. And then when I was on vacation, right around the beginning of COVID, I was going to do it, and the harbor was closed in Playa and they couldn't take me out.
Oh man.
So I ended up just getting refunded my money. And then I don't know how the conversation came up, but Chris and I were talking about it one day, and I was like, I've already done a try scuba. Find us a Groupon or something, and the shop close. And if you go do it, like, I'll go do it with you. And if you like it, we'll get certified together. And so we went down to the shop, and we did the try scuba, and he was hooked.
That's how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had done like 2 or 3 try scubas before that. I took my wife to do one, and then we did one in the Bahamas on our honeymoon. In St. Thomas on our honeymoon off the cruise, which was a little questionable now that I have been diving and am a pro and all of the things. Like, it was the way that operation went was real questionable. So there will be no names or anything like that mentioned. But
was that actual scuba, or was that like where the
no, it was actual scuba.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
No certification needed, huh?
10-minute crash course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, man, that is my first try scuba experience was when I was in college with my buddy at Phoenix Scuba. So we've talked about our scuba firsts being either try scubas or lake dives. What about your first non-lake dive experience?
I guess I can talk about my first time going into cenotes.
Yeah.
That definitely was different than the lake. Part of it was still freshwater. Out there in Cozumel. Is actually with you, DJ, and you too, Chris, and you too, Missy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing experience. I don't think, even to this day, I don't think I've ever seen any water that's that clear and just feels so clean.
In the wild.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
The first one we did was Bat Cave, part of the cenote system of the Dos Ojos. And I just remember dropping in and seeing the light rays come through the water. And it was just the most glorious thing I'd ever seen. And it's just breathtaking.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys,
It's magical.
you were there.
We
too.
were there.
Yeah.
It's so magical.
It was phenomenal. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had.
It is my absolute favorite thing in the world. As anybody who knows me or has talked to me around the dive shop knows that I will usually find a way to work cenote diving into a diving conversation. It's actually funny because my first cenote experience was a snorkeling experience, and I wasn't super comfortable with it. And the end result, I ended up snorkeling in there, and I'm glad I did because it was great. But being apprehensive and being the aggressive guy that I am, I told our snorkeling guide that if he didn't stop pressuring me, I would leave his dead body in the cenote, be on a flight back to the U.S. within hours, and I would never go back to Mexico again. Yeah. And then my first dive trip to Cozumel, two of our instructors suggested that my wife and I and Chris and his wife go down and do cenotes. And I'm very happy that we did. The cenotes are my absolute favorite thing in the world to dive. They are a complete 180 from the ocean or anything else diving that I've ever experienced. We're tied to our phones. We're tied to all of the stimulation that we get in our daily lives. And the cenotes are a complete lack of that. There is no movement. There is no colors. There is no life. There is no anything being busy. It is just peacefulness and tranquility.
Serenity.
It is the most spiritual thing that I've ever experienced.
And the age, like you can feel the age of the earth down there.
Yeah.
You really can.
Yep. It is one of those things where I feel most at home in the cenote. You know, Missy, earlier you were talking about how when you first dropped in, you were home.
Yeah.
In the cenotes now, that's how I feel. It's one of those things that, you know, because I'm not a super like outdoorsy person, but it's one of those things that I will say that connects me to the earth. And to get the history lesson that we get from the shop that I use down there, to get, you know, their enthusiasm for the guides that I use.
Oh, big time.
Those
guys are intense.
It is absolutely an experience I think every diver should have and do at least once. Even if you're claustrophobic, even if you are unsure of it, it is one of the most amazing dive experiences that I think anybody can
It's
experience.
like a geological wonder, just looking at the geology when you're underneath, and it's like just how it's formed and just the world that you're seeing, and you're realizing it's so clear. I got to look at my bubbles and remember, oh man, I'm in water.
Yeah.
It's clear you don't realize you're in water.
And it's so clean. And I love like you said, their enthusiasm about it. And it's not just the enthusiasm for the history, but the enthusiasm for the geology, how it's developed, and for the land itself. I mean, the two guides we have aren't even from there. They transplanted from Europe just to be there, to be in that. And I'm right there with you. The first drop into those it's such a spiritual thing. I mean, especially with the history of it and being a religious studies major and studying that, you know,
The Mayan.
that whole, you know, ritual, symbol, myth, all of that. So being in that, because it's liminal space. So being able to be in that, you're right. The spirituality to it and the connectedness to the earth just amplifies.
What was the first cenote you dove, DJ?
The first cenotes I did were both Barbie Line and Bat Cave of Dos Ojos.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah. So, fun fact, the cenotes that we dove when the four of us went, those were very carefully picked.
Yeah.
Bat Cave, because it is like you get to surface in the air dome with the bats, which is super dope. But also it's not very tight and it's not very technical.
And it breaks up that time in the cavern systems. And it gives you time to process what you're doing and what you're experiencing. I mean, you saw when I surfaced in there, I was choking because I was crying through my mask and regulator.
Yeah. But no, those very two cenotes were chosen because they're great cenotes. So a little bit of backstory. We did Bat Cave and then we did El Pit at the same day as part of our trip when the four of us went. And like I said, I specifically asked for those to get a bit of difference. The Pit, while it's a deeper dive, it's not a super challenge.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure that everybody that was supposed to be going with us in the group at least got one dive done today, or got one dive done that day, because I wanted to make sure that if in the cavern part in Bat Cave, if anybody had to come apart, that they weren't just done diving for the day. And so I don't want to say I put a lot of thought into it, but I put some thought into it to make sure that everybody in the group at least got to experience a full dive in the cenotes.
And El Pit is, like you said, even though it's
gorgeous,
deep, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's
the halocline in there was was so trippy to
dope.
see. Oh, this is what's going to happen when you look at your gauge. I'm like, no, it's not. And I looked at my gauge. I was like, wow, it is like fuzzy and hazy and like
so
real trippy. I was like, this is pretty cool. And that was at like what, 112 feet or something like that.
Yeah. So, and it's great too for somebody who hasn't done cenotes, even though it's deep.
It's just a nice open hole.
Yeah, exactly. You can
inspire.
And that's something I'm so glad I did too when we got down there, is look back up at the surface.
Just look at the height. Yeah.
You know, and even though you know how deep it is, it's there. It's reachable, and there's and the amount of different styles of diver that were in there. Because when we went, there was us, there was free divers, there was rebreather divers. everything in there, and it was amazing. So it didn't matter. Even if you had an event or a come apart, you have a significant emotional event down there, there's so many different types of diver, and there's so many people that are accessible. Actually, I had a rebreather guy come up to me when I was doing my safety stop, because I'm an air hog and had to come up before everybody else. Rebreather guy came up to me and he looked over and kind of gave me the okay sign, and I was like, yeah, I'm, gave him the safety stop signal, and he went on about his way, not blowing bubbles.
Jealous.
Which was weird.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. But yeah, it was incredible.
No, it really is. And it's one of those things that to describe it or show pictures doesn't fully do it justice.
Not at all. Not at all.
In true story, you don't have to be deep to see the haloclines.
No, yeah.
No, there's...
And you don't have to be deep to see those colors either.
On my last trip, one of the cenotes we did was Dreamgate. And there's a halocline that is just like right in the middle. And I don't think we got more than 40 feet on that dive. I'd have to go back and look at the log, but I don't think we got more than 40 feet. And you can see it as you go in and out of it. It's super cool.
That's amazing. And it's so hard, especially in a platform like this. We can talk about it all we want, but you have to have the visual, and even the visual it doesn't do it any justice.
No.
It really doesn't. But to that though, it's enough of a hook, right? Because it was your picture, DJ, of Dos Ojos that got me. I was like hard no against cave and cavern diving. But when I saw that picture, I was like, oh, I need to have that. I need to do that.
You definitely are right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I can't wait till you guys get to go back again and experience one with a sulfur cloud. That is super cool too.
And before we move on or anything, the cenotes, the people that you meet, right? And you know right where I'm going with this.
Exactly.
Having Michelle in the group, meeting her, having her as a dive buddy on, both of those dives. And I mean, that's turned into something that's absolutely incredible. For listeners, we met an individual from Canada on these dives, and, she became our dive buddy for the day, and she's now part of our dive family. She's in our group chats, and she's come down from Canada to dive the kelp with us and Catalina. And as much as I think we all really don't like the cold water, we owe her a trip. We owe her a trip up to Vancouver.
Yeah, we gotta get up there.
She's trying so hard too.
Oh, well, okay. So we've talked about our first experience in the cenotes. What else you guys got?
I'm taking the first ocean dive.
Okay, go for it.
Right out with that.
Let's get it.
My first ocean dive was in Cozumel on a trip with actually a present company.
All of us.
It was the same cenote trip as well. But we got to Cozumel, and, I was expecting we were just going to relax and chill at the resort and do our thing and start diving the next day.
Nope.
And we're in the line for customs.
Denied.
And Darren is like, we're going to drop our stuff and go get in the water. And I kind of had a bit of a come apart because I wasn't sure I was quite ready for that. I was like, okay, we're in it. So we staged in that little ocean pool, and dropping over that wall immediately my life shifted right at that moment. And I thought, I didn't think I didn't think I would be claustrophobic. I thought I would be agoraphobic, right? Because it's just
big. It's expansive.
Open, right? None of it. No claustrophobia, no agoraphobia. I started crying immediately. And
can confirm.
Yep.
I was there for that.
Yep.
But it was so incredible. And again, I thought I felt at home in the lake, and I do, but God, my home is in the sea.
They're so much better.
Oh, my heart is 100% in the sea. And, we're diving, we're swimming along, and, we head over to the pier so we can start doing some of our rec cert skills, finish up with that. And they're leading the dive along the way. And Darren, our dive master, our trip leader, he turns around and he waves, and I wave back like, hi, hi, I'm here, But when I turned around and looked, aside from Matt and Chris and the other friends that went with us. In the back of the pack is DJ and his wife, who did not drop into the ocean with us. They were over in Tulum diving cenotes. And at some point they had taken the ferry back across, came to the hotel, and they knew we had gone in. So they walked out to the pier and they saw us in the water. You know, they saw our bubbles and saw us in the water. So, you know, they strapped on a tank and dropped in. And it was such a moment, you know, like in the middle of the entire body of water on this planet, to turn around and see two of your buddies behind you unexpectedly. They found you amongst all of the ocean. They found you is one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, and is absolutely one of my most favorite dive stories. And then it turned into, you know, I don't think DJ could get 5 feet from me before I was banging on my tank like, look at that, oh my God, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, and
Take a picture of this. Take a picture of that.
little rays, but that was also my first porcupine fish too. And what a lovely thing to come across, you know, is, you know, your little smiley fish.
Yep.
You know, and then, you know, my damselfish buddy.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you that don't know, if you've ever dove Cozumel or you're intending to, right off the reef at Dive Paradise, they've sunk a small Mayan temple structure for coral reef growth. And there's this little black damselfish that lives in it. And he caught my eye just because he's, you know, doing damselfish things. And I put my finger on the structure to stabilize myself so I could kind of look down inside the hole. And he came charging around that structure right for my finger. He was having no part of it. I didn't realize I was also touching his food at the time, but that little tiny damselfish punked me so hard. And it made for the best first ocean experience, you know, to have yourself and your spouse and your kid and all of your closest friends, and then, you know, a spicy fish.
Spicy friend.
Oh, it was so wonderful. It was, and I mean, I've had so many other firsts and so many other returns back to the ocean and whatnot, and some of them are so memorable and so incredible, but that one's always kind of that's the keystone memory, you know. Absolutely incredible dive.
I will say that trip, my favorite memories of that trip was getting to dive cenotes on my birthday because I'm narcissistic, but no.
What? No.
No. My absolute two favorite things were that was everybody getting to experience cenotes for the first time.
Yeah.
And you getting to experience the ocean for the first time.
Yeah.
That was those two things are the highlights of my trip.
And you know, to that, and I'm glad you said that, because that was also our son's first ocean dive. So doing my first dive, but then also looking over and seeing my son doing his first ocean dive was just extraordinary. And it took me out of what I was experiencing for the first time so I could be, you know, a passive observer in his experience, and just watching Gregory in the ocean to begin with. Listeners, Gregory is 6'3", so with fins and all of the rest of the gear, he's almost 7 feet long,
10 feet tall,
and he's wearing a bright orange shirt, so he looks like a safety cone, a 7-foot safety cone. But it's incredible, right? So not just watching myself grow and watching the other couple of friends we had with us grow in their experience, and, you know, Matt and DJ and Chris, you guys, you know, building on your knowledge, but to watch our son do that was also, it just added on to that first time experience. It was so overwhelming in the best possible way.
Right.
Yeah. I dive buddied with him when we were out in the drift. So yeah. You two were diving together. I was like, oh, he needs a dive buddy. I'll team up with him. So
yeah, I know. We came up because I air hogged again, as you do.
As you do.
Yeah, that's
why you have your special tag that says air hog.
Yeah, I do.
You're getting better though.
I am.
Yeah,
that's for
That's
sure.
right. Yeah. With firsts, you know, first ocean dives, first drift dive, first wreck dive, all of this. And then the first time also having to come up to the surface and leave my son 80 feet below me was terrifying. I mean,
with me, you were good.
I mean, we got back up on the boat, and the first thing I was like, Oh, expletive. My son's 80 feet down and there's no getting to him easily, right? And there's no him getting up easily.
Yeah.
And I think he actually came up a little bit before you or whatever, but we saw this SMB pop on the surface. We were like, what the heck? And and there pops Gregory on his own, and he's like, I did this, and I had my safety stop and SMB deployment and all the things.
I was right behind him.
Right. And I'm like, here's our kid who's just, there's our kid who just mastered the ocean on his own. And it was such an awesome, parental moment.
Meanwhile, I'm
Lots of
comforting
firsts.
her on the boat, and I'm like, he's fine. He's certified.
Yeah.
He's good. He's in good hands.
He's fine.
Right. And he was. I mean, he absolutely was. I had the same thing when we were in the cenotes too. I was like, my God, I left my kid back on Cozumel and I'm in Tulum. And he's just on an island in Mexico. And here I am, 40 feet under the earth's crust. And
He was fine. Them Canadian ladies were taking care of him.
yes,
Oh,
they
for
were.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yes, they were.
I also want to point out something that you didn't mention that you mentioned all the first. That was the first group pink suit dive.
Yes.
Yes, it was.
That is where we became
Yes,
DJ
it
and
was.
Missy from SpongeBob and Patrick.
So fun.
DJ
Right.
Missy from SpongeBob and Patrick.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, there was 11 of us.
Core memory
Oh,
unlocked.
big time. Yeah. And I love so much that Jose was a good sport and wore his
I know.
toddler size
Right.
pinks.
That's the last Mayan king.
Yep.
And listeners, again, there's 11 of us of all different heights and body types and whatnot, and we're all in
Pink
tight,
pink spandex bodysuits.
neck to toes, pink spandex bodysuits.
Yep.
And it's amazing. The pictures are. We should probably have like
Mm.
a little photo album online to go with this nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, most of those photos
was
and stuff,
beautiful, yeah.
they're on the,
They're on the
Fat
page.
Guy
Yeah.
Scuba page.
Yeah, all of the pictures and videos are somewhere on the Fat Guy Scuba page. I think I want to do pictures to accompany some of this stuff at some.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I mean, hey, it'll get them into the cenotes.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, man, cenotes are right. There's nothing wrong about cenotes.
Nothing at all.
Oh yeah.
Chris, what do you got?
So I'll roll with a first ocean experience. Pretty much after you do all your certifications and it's time to get away from the lake. The Catalina trip came up for California, so
So
me and you
beautiful.
on that. We ended up turning that into our night certification and our deep certification on that trip. But
We
yeah,
were still only like 20-ish.
it was
dives in.
we were only 20 in on that.
Yeah.
Look at you guys going deep in the dark.
But no, that was like I said, first ocean experience on a boat. I mean, no shore, no nothing. It's hey, we're going right out to the boat, and here we go. Yeah, doing the bottom scratcher trip was pretty cool. Getting to experience that. Okay, here's your weight differential now from fresh water to salt water.
Yeah.
Tumbling, isn't it?
I'm like, I know my weight. I'm gonna be perfect. I was like, all right, I'm not going down. This isn't. Add more weight. I'm like,
No.
I'm over 25 pounds. I'm like, no, keep adding more.
And
I was like, by 28, I finally was able to submerge.
28.
28.
God, it took me 30 the first time.
Yeah, with a 7 mil. I was like, all right,
Oh,
fine. But yeah, just the first time going under and just seeing all the kelp. I mean, you look at it online and stuff like that, but actually seeing it for the first time and watching it move with the surge and you move with it, and it's it's underwater forest.
It is.
So seeing that for the first time and just the clarity, because I mean,
Yeah.
before that it's just been our lovely
Lake Viz.
yeah, but going into Catalina, I think was the first one was can't remember.
Seafan Grotto was the
Seafan
first
Grotto.
one.
Tangrado.
Yep,
I like that dive site.
Yeah.
Seafan Grotto, the first one, and just the clarity and the visibility. You just look out and it's just there.
Yeah.
And again, pictures not doing it any justice.
No, you got to see it. You got to see it for yourself. Like I said, the kelp, and then just being able to go with the dive guide. 'Cause early on in our dive site or dive career, just being toured around through the kelp, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, oh, we're back at the boat. How'd that happen? because I had no bearings at all once we were down. I was like, all right, well,
That's how it was in Roatan.
I'm following the leader. So
That's how it was in Roatan last week. There was a couple of dives where we're doing our thing and going around the coral, and it's amazing. And there's nurse sharks, and suddenly boat.
yeah, I mean, that was one of 7 or 9 dives that weekend.
Yeah.
Doing
That's a full weekend.
Doing the first night dive in the ocean, the first time getting your night cert, and you're like, ooh, this is a little different. All right, everybody turn off your lights. We're like, what?
I did my
What?
I did my first night ocean dive in Catalina as well.
Yeah,
But
same here.
Did you?
Same here.
Yeah.
That's right, because you didn't make the ocean dive. You didn't make
I
the
didn't make it in Cozumel because I had a lot of Dramamine. I over anticipated the motion sickness on boat.
Yeah, I did my first ocean night dive in Catalina.
Did you?
Because that was before Cozumel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and Kai were on the bottom scratcher trip.
Yeah, that's
Before.
before we all dove together on the
Yep.
on the bottom scratcher.
Yep.
That was my first liveaboard trip.
Yeah.
First ocean dives, kind of all of the above over there. Yeah.
Which listeners, Kai is a buddy of ours. He is the one that approached Matt about diving.
Yeah.
And got Matt into it, and then got me into it, and it's Kai's fault. We're all here.
It's very
Which-
infectious.
Yeah,
It is, which
is.
we had a total full circle moment in Roatan because Kai actually certified my 100th dive,
Nice.
which was, yeah, that was
dope.
big. Yep. Crying in my rag again.
Century.
But it was a beautiful thing. He's the one that started it, and to have him certify that dive was a beautiful thing.
That's
Monumental moment.
Yeah.
So
That's super cool.
I have a surprise for him too. He doesn't know it yet.
nice.
So
Nice.
the the Chris and DJ from Fat Guy Scuba, and then the Kai from Matt and Kai, and Matt from Matt and Kai. I have BCD tags that say Kai from Molly and Kai, and
Nice.
Molly from Molly and Kai.
That's cool.
Molly's his daughter. She's certifying in July.
Nice.
So
Oh, so
they'll
soon.
have,
Right on.
very soon. So excited.
Yeah, he actually took her BC to Honduras.
It's a little
He was
itty
diving
bitty
it.
tiny.
That thing was
Nice.
so small.
Nice.
Yes, it's wee.
That's dope.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
Cool.
her first BC is gonna be a backplate and wing,
Nice.
right?
Good way to start.
Yeah. So now we have a whole new set of firsts to look forward to, right?
What else you got?
Matt?
Well, we were talking about wildlife, right? You were talking about the damselfish, and I remember the first time I was in Catalina and we saw an octopus, and in my mind, like the whole time I'm thinking of like these big,
Nope.
these documentaries where they're like, this is the giant octopus, and the first time I see one, someone's there, one of the guys we were diving with comes over, he points at something with
bigger
a
than your
flashlight,
fist.
and I'm like, what the heck is he pointing at? I don't see anything.
Size of a dinner plate.
And then it comes out of the hole, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that calamari right there. Holy cow. Yeah, it was just this little tiny octopus, and it came out and kind of, was getting a little curious and reaching its tentacles and stuff out. And
Yeah.
later on, it started scooting across the ocean floor. It was super cool. Yeah, just some of the wildlife that we've seen out there first times. I mean, there's a lot of firsts because we're still, experiencing quite a few things. I mean, there's so much to explore, so many things to do.
Oh, yeah.
The giant sea bass, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
That was the coolest thing. True story on this. When we went to Catalina, Chris and I, the first time, I had done a bunch of research and saw that they have the giant sea bass out there, and I didn't see one. And I was super butthurt that I didn't get to see one. I was so let down that I didn't see one. And I was so disappointed. And then when we were on the trip last year, I didn't even notice it.
I didn't either.
Some Christy or somebody had to get my attention and was like, look over there right now.
And that's what got me is because during that moment, I was like super anxiety riddled, and I had already told Matt we needed to get to the surface because I was having a significant emotional event, and I saw the motion where Christy was getting you and pointing at it, and that's when I saw the tail, and I was like, beating the hell out of Matt, like, look.
Yep.
But it took me out of that anxiety, and I was able to
Distracted you.
finish that dive. Good thing.
That trip was super cool.
That was a great trip.
We had a fantastic group of divers on that trip, and everybody had fun. The boat crew on the Bottom Scratcher had fun.
Trench coat Canelo.
Take Tracy the dive.
Yep. That was fantastic. That was such a good trip.
How big was that bass?
It was probably the size of a Volkswagen bus.
Oh yeah.
It was
What?
huge. Yeah, it was giant.
It was
8
huge.
feet.
Have you
at
not
the
seen the
least.
picture?
I saw the picture, but I mean,
Yeah.
the pictures and
No,
Yeah.
reality.
well, you can see Christy behind it, and it's legitimately the size of a Volkswagen.
Yeah, he's enormous.
Wow.
But I think, when the sea life, you said you didn't see one and you were butthurt about it. I think we hear about all these animals and we want to see, we want to see these, we want to experience, be in that presence while we're in the water. And I think, that while the ocean is like teeming with all this life, I think we expect it to just be there when we drop in, forgetting that you could go hundreds of miles and not see a thing, So it's that, that humbling expectation that they're not just going to be there.
It's not just there when you drop in.
Yeah. Except for the Garibaldi.
Wow, sure.
They're there.
But it's like people think sharks, right?
Yeah.
Every non-diver, what's the first thing they ask you? Aren't you afraid of sharks?
No,
because
I'm afraid of the damselfish
Yeah.
in Cozumel.
Yeah. It's are you afraid of the sharks? No, because the chances of seeing like a bunch of them is small.
Yeah. And
So, depending on where you
And even if you do, they're not concerned with us. They might get curious and come and check it out, but as long as you're not, playing stupid games, you won't get stupid prizes.
Yeah, facts.
And they're beautiful to watch. We just did a shark dive in Roatan last week. Actually, we had a couple of encounters. One of our dives, we had 2 nurse sharks. They stuck with us for the full hour, just rubbing up against our legs and keeping a perimeter. And then, a couple days later, we did a shark dive with Caribbean black tip reef sharks. It was probably 12?
There was there was more than that.
More than
There was
that?
about 20, 25 of them circling around. Yeah.
All female, and they're, there's a little bit of operant conditioning because it's, it's a chartered shark dive. But even when we were dropping on the line, you can see them down there swimming around, which is amazing to drop into, by the way.
Yeah.
Seeing a bunch of sharks down there while you're dropping in. But they're unfazed, and they are in your perimeter.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, like one of them came close enough when she flipped her tail to move off. Her tail didn't hit me, but the water did. The force against my chest was incredible from a shark that was not even 10 feet long. Just the awesome power.
Right.
And but they're so beautiful and graceful. And even though it's a reef shark, it's very clear that this is an apex predator, and to be in that proximity is exhilarating.
Cool. Yeah.
It really is. And then watching them frenzy over a couple of fish heads then you really got to see their speed, their strength, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
What was better though is while we were hanging out, there was this fat grouper that was
my buddy.
Yeah. He was probably 5 feet long?
No, he wasn't that. No, he's probably
big.
like 3 feet long.
Really? Yeah. He's chilling out. He's like, the grouper's literally rubbing up against us and doing his thing. And then when the shark started to frenzy, he went right in there with it. No fear.
Oh, yeah.
And at one point, like, the sharks gave him a wide berth.
Oh, yeah.
They were having no part of this grouper, which was incredible to see, because here we are, we are not at the top of the food chain while we're down there. The shark is, and to watch them give way to a grouper was amazing.
Wow.
You know what my favorite part about that dive was? My absolute favorite part was we have everybody lined up. There's people standing up in the back. We got people kneeling down in the front, just up against a wall, and everyone's just kind of checking stuff out. And I'm looking to my left, I'm looking to my right, and then somebody catches eyes with me, and I look over at them and I give them the shark symbol.
Yeah, through
And
the whole,
I'm
everybody's pointing and giving the shark symbol.
But nobody threw out the shark signal. We didn't know there were sharks, right? I was like, come on, let's use our sign language here, guys. Come on. And then everybody started doing it, and it got caught on some of the shark videos that they took.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Just a bunch of fools acting like fools. So it was pretty fun.
And that was a first, I think, for a lot of us. Because it's not like any other dive you're going to go on. I mean, they're very strict about their rules, what you can and cannot do, and they will jerk you right out of the water without a thought. But it was an incredible first experience with sharks, you know, and it immediately gives you that healthy respect instead of just that paralyzing fear that you're in the water with this. But yeah, and it's such an awesome thing. It's an amazing first experience for that. If you're like, nurse sharks are one thing, but especially because of, you know, the reef shark, it has that, it's a shark, you know, but it's a great first experience.
You're not swimming with tigers.
Yeah.
Different
Way
part.
different. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a whole different tone right there.
And what was cool though, is after they were given their fish heads and whatnot, and they dispersed a bit, you know, they're like, okay, now you can get up and swim. And so, you know, you can check the sand for shark teeth, which I have one. I'll show it to you guys when we're done. But so I was doing that, you know, I went and I was like looking for a shark tooth, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, because the sharks are still here.
Yeah.
So I backed up out of the crowd, and you're just swimming with these reef sharks, and it's absolutely like best first shark experience.
Nice.
It's incredible.
Have you guys dove with sharks?
Yeah.
Some nurse sharks.
So we've seen nurse sharks in Cozumel and stuff. Christy and I, when we did Blackbeards last year, they do a shark dive on that trip too.
What kind of sharks were out there? Was it a feed dive?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What they do is they do it on a rack. They do it out on the Austin Smith.
Dope. So awesome.
It's way cool because they have you hang on. There's a section of the boat the ship is pretty much a total loss. But there's a square section of the boat that's got railing on it, and they get everybody around the railing, and you're holding onto it. So you're steadied right there. And then what they do is there's a line that there's an anchor point in the middle of this. The railing is probably 10 foot by 10 foot or something like that. And they take a frozen bait ball and anchor it to that, and then the sharks and stuff come in.
Awesome.
And just like you said with the grouper, they give way to the grouper. Same thing. There was a bunch of bigger groupers around
crazy.
there, and they just knock the sharks out of the way and stuff. And,
I'm surprised the sharks don't eat the grouper, right?
I mean, they're big groupers.
Yeah, but still, you know, that'd be a good meal. But,
yeah, it was an odd thing to watch.
Yeah,
and I did forget about the safety shark in Cozumel. I didn't get to see it that time. Yeah, because I was on my way up doing my safety stop. You guys were still down at that point and happened to see it.
You're gonna have to preface what safety shark is.
So the safety shark is, we were on our night dive in Cozumel, and we were all surfacing, and then
Not me.
Well, yeah, because you had too much Dramamine.
Too much Dramamine.
But we were coming up from our safety stop, and we were all pretty much at that point where we were doing our safety stop, and then we all saw this smaller nurse shark, and we all bolted down to the bottom to take pictures and stuff of it. When I say the bottom, I mean it was probably 30-ish feet or something like that. Yeah. But yeah. But we all did it. We all had plenty of air to do it.
I love how much diving changes perspective, though. You're like 30-ish feet. Like it's.
Oh, yeah. No, it's
30
cool.
feet. It's fine. It's fine. It's no big deal.
It's cool.
It's fine. It's such a weird perspective.
What do you got for your first ocean dive, Matt?
So I talked a little bit about it previous with
the octopus and being in Catalina
talking in Catalina, and doing the first night dive in the ocean was also on Catalina as well.
Yeah.
I was scared out of my mind, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is a big ocean, it's dark, and I'm about to go in here with a flashlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't see anything.
But you can see everything.
But you can, which is what I had found out, right?
Yeah.
And went with some experienced divers, and we dropped in, and I was probably maybe the fourth or fifth pair to drop in.
Mm-hmm.
And after I broke the surface and started descending, the first thing that I saw was several groups of divers and their flashlights
Yeah.
off in the distance, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Like when it comes to that, right? These groups of people, just you can tell what they're looking at and see what their behavior looks like as they're out, and it just kind of brings everything and calms it down. And to be honest, when it comes to night diving, I get some of my best sack rate is night diving, because I'm just so relaxed.
Yeah.
And just in zen, and it's just so calming.
And being on the surface on a night dive doesn't suck.
No, it's not terrible.
Watching people in the water is so cool.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it helps too, because like you can do a head count.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's really cool too. Like when you're swimming in your pairs and with your dive buddy and whatnot, and you guys are checking stuff out, and all of a sudden you see these two groups, and you see the flashlights just focus in on one area, and you're like, "Ooh, I better go check that out."
Somebody saw something.
Yeah, and that's when we saw the octopus. Like we swam over there, we're like, "Oh, cool." You know, somebody was throwing out hand signal for octopus, and I'm looking around like above me. I'm like, "Where? I don't see this big octopus." And then it's like,
"Oh no,
there it is." Yeah.
And I will say, for firsts, Catalina is amazing for a first ocean dive.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's cold and 7 mil sucks, but it's wonderful for that, right? Because the dives can be shallow.
It's a training ground.
Yeah, you have. I mean, the kelp forest is beautiful. You're not lacking for seeing anything.
No, you're certainly not.
So, I mean, and I hate to reduce it. Oh, it's just the kelp. It's just the Garibaldi, but the color combo, right?
Oh yeah,
in the light,
green
it's
and that blue,
so beautiful, and then that vibrant orange,
the sea urchins and all that
yeah,
stuff, the blacks and the different purple ones and all that.
It is a beautiful place to do a first ocean dive.
Yeah, and one of the things Chris was talking about earlier is, experiencing the surge from the ocean. And one thing I like to relate it to is like I consider that the breath of the ocean. Really do, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because especially when you get your buoyancy dialed in pretty good, I'm not going to say perfect, right? Once you get your buoyancy dialed in pretty good, and you're getting closer to the shore, and you start experiencing more of that surge, and
feels so good.
You can look over at the kelp, you can look over at the reef, and as you're moving, everything's moving with you.
Everything's moving with you.
You're in sync.
And getting into sync where you wait until the surge pushes you in the direction you're trying to swim, and you give it a couple kicks. Then you wait.
When you first learn how to time your kicks to it, the first time you feel that propulsion is so amazing.
Yeah, and you just float the rest of it as it's pushing you back, and then you kick when you're going forward. It's such a cool feeling because you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Oh yeah. But also so humbling, and you're so small and insignificant at the same time. It's a really, really powerful dichotomy.
Oh, for sure.
And I will say too, on top of that, the surge and how you were saying it's like the breath of the ocean and whatnot. As a parent, as a mom, when your child is fussing or whatever, and I'm saying this because I know you, DJ, you and Chris don't have kids, but I'm assuming you have like nieces, nephews, friends, or whatever. When your child is fussing and they're upset, you pick them up, and it's a natural thing to start rocking them. And you see that same motion in the trees, when the wind is blowing. And I didn't expect to find that down in the ocean as well. I mean, Matt had told me about the surge and what it was like, but when I dropped in and I first experienced that, I was like, it's the same feeling and the same motion as when I used to rock Gregory when he was little. And, that's where we start, right? In amniotic fluid in the womb, and you're being rocked, and it happens again in the ocean. You get in there, and again, you're surrounded by this body of water, and it's rocking you, and it's one of the most beautiful experiences. And I think that's why we feel so calm and so at home down there, because that's where we started, essentially.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing. It's one of my favorite things, especially at a safety stop. It's such a good way to just chill in those last bits of your dive.
Yeah.
And you can stay down longer. When you're in that little bit.
Yeah, I think feeling that surge is definitely something that we appreciate a little bit more, because most of the diving that we've done so far has been in our local lake.
Yep.
And we definitely don't have a surge there.
Which still,
No.
yeah, it's still water.
Yeah, it's well, for the most part, sometimes we get a lot of surface movement if there's some storms or something rolling in, or if there's heavy boat traffic kind of close to the area.
Yeah, that's being able to be in the different environments is one of the nicest things about it. It makes you appreciate it more.
Yes.
I know I've talked to the three of you guys in length about this, but drift diving with, getting this versus getting the surge that like you get in Catalina when you're closer to the island.
Yeah.
Getting the drift when you are on the boat or off the boat or even off the shore in Cozumel is one of my absolute favorite things. Like you just jump in, especially when it's not a fast current, but like not quite super slow.
You would have loved it in Roatan last week.
Where you can just get in and just kind of ride the wave, just ride that current and just kind of chill, not have to kick, not have to fin, like just, take a breath in to go up over something, let it out to go back down. Like that is, it's so relaxing. That is my favorite thing about diving in Cozumel is the drift itself.
Yeah.
Is just being able to get in and just kind of ride that and relax, seeing the things and, just being underwater and getting to do the thing.
When we first dropped in Cozumel, those were my first drift dives, and I had no idea how to function in a drift dive, right? I mean, you can talk to somebody about it, and it's theory at that point, but actual practice is a different thing. So those first drift dives, like I was trying to figure out my body and how just to be in that. So it took away from really being able to experience everything that was going around because I was trying to figure myself out and air hog at the same time. And in Catalina, we've done a couple, but they haven't been pretty significant. It's not, and I mean, they're not going to let us drop in with crazy current anyway. No. But I figured it out in Roatan last week because they were all drift dives, but they were so slow and so calm. And I finally figured out how to be and just let the drift do its thing. And you're right, it's one of the coolest things. It is absolutely amazing.
When you have that light bulb moment and you're just, oh, I don't have to do this and I can just ride this. It is
no effort.
So good.
I had a lot of light bulb moments in Roatan. So it made, even though I had done these experiences before, they were first time experiences again, because now I'm doing them with knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. And it completely changed the way I dive. And guess what? I did an air hog last week.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah, it was
did not air hog last week.
It was awesome. Yeah. Like we were checking each other's air and we're both at the same same pressure. I was like, wow, okay.
There was a couple of times where I had a better stack rate.
Why you got to bring up old stuff?
What's up?
Nice.
And me being me and being so conditioned to myself and usually being the first one that's got to surface are dive guides who are amazing. And come the end of the week, it's your total part of the ship, part of the crew. I had kept, I would signal them and like, this is where I'm at. And they're like, okay, it's fine. And then when we would get back up on the boat, we had to give a report of everything because we were all diving nitrox, which those were my first nitrox dives too.
Nice.
I have a lot of good feelings about that. But when everybody started giving their air, what they ended on, I was like, oh, God, I was fine.
Oh, I'm not the lowest?
Right. Yeah, I was so used to being the lowest. And I know it now. I'm like, these guys were probably like
somewhere in the middle now.
What is this chick doing?
Yeah.
And I will say so we did 17 total dives. One was a shark dive and that was regular air, but 16 dives on nitrox. Never once was I tired.
Yeah.
No exhaustion, no headaches. Nice. And even the joint pain was reduced.
Really?
Yeah. I was not expecting that.
Nice.
I get it now. All the nitrox dives.
So tonight we've talked about our first scuba experience. What got us into it, our first ocean dives, our first experience in the cenotes.
Lake dives.
Yep, our first lake dives. So what we're going to do is we're going to end on bucket list.
Oh. Ooh.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
God.
This is normally where I go, hey, hear me out.
Hear me out, right? Hear
But
me
I'm gonna
out.
have you guys
So bucket list. We're talking bucket list
Bucket
dives,
list.
right?
Wait. Bucket list site or bucket
No,
list bucket list animal?
no, either one, both.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Cool,
Where are we going? What do you want to see?
So one of the things that I want to check out, for those that don't know, I'm going to be getting into rebreather diving once I finish up my Tech 40. I mentioned that in the beginning of the podcast, but I do have a rebreather. I'm going to be going through that certification on that probably within the next couple months or so.
Right.
So one of the reasons I want to get into that is, I mean, obviously to take advantage of the function of it, but being able to dive deeper, and I want to be able to dive on some shipwrecks. One of the shipwrecks I want to dive isn't necessarily a deep dive, but it's the Thistlegorm. Super excited about checking that one out. And seeing all the vehicles and stuff that are still stored in that transport ship, and checking that out. And with the rebreather, I'd be able to stay down there longer and, be able to check more of it out while I'm there.
Yeah,
sure.
that is definitely a place that I want to hit.
Yeah, for sure.
Real quick segue. Yesterday I was talking to some other divers, and they had mentioned a wreck that's in the Bahamas, and it's in like 15 feet of water. So a good portion of the boat is actually out of the water. Did you guys see that when you were down there?
No, they told us about it. We didn't go to that site. We spent that trip dodging the hurricane.
The
that
hurricanes,
was coming,
that's right.
trying to come through there. So we bounced around between the Exumas and Eleutheros. So
Trying to dodge a hurricane.
yeah.
Wuss.
But so okay,
sorry.
bucket list dive, bucket list animal.
Bucket list animal.
Yeah.
Definitely a hammerhead. Any species of the hammerhead.
Yeah.
Definitely want to check those guys out.
Nice.
Absolutely.
Missy?
Those are amazing sharks too. Bucket list location right now. Galapagos is always going to be at the top of that for me anyway. Galapagos and Socorro. But bucket list location right now is Kona, because the giant mantas are my bucket list animal. So
Just keep
sorry. Yeah, Kona and the mantas, that's absolutely my bucket list right now.
Yeah.
Maybe not later, but
Sure.
once we do that, then we'll add, something else will replace it. But I mean, and aside from that, the sea otter, that's the very top of my list.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Bucket list place, Chris.
Ooh. Bucket list place, I want to have to say, and it's probably in reach, Great Barrier Reef, Australia, but parts of the reef that are way out of the way.
Okay.
Parts less visited, per se. And then I would say bucket list animal, whale sharks. And I mean, if I don't want to go to Australia to see that or somewhere else, just go to Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia Aquarium,
Go
man.
get the aquarium done.
I've heard nothing but good things about that dive.
Yes.
And have you guys ever been to Georgia Aquarium?
Yes, I have.
No.
It's like Disneyland for
It is.
the ocean, right?
Last time I was in Atlanta, I was like, this has to happen.
It
That's
is-
when I saw him. I go, oh yeah, this has to happen.
It's one of the most. It is the aquarium.
The beluga
to visit.
whales, the beluga whale exhibit.
Oh, isn't it beautiful?
Those things are freaking hilarious.
They're mermaids.
They're
Nice.
hilarious.
They are. They're so cute. But yeah, the aquarium is just. I highly recommend going and seeing that if you haven't.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, and what they're doing there is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
DJ, what do you got?
Bucket list dives, huh? Bucket list dives, I kind of have a toss up. It is between everywhere and hear me out. No, it is bucket list dive. I'd like to go do a live aboard through the Maldives. Bucket list animal, whale sharks. I'm not so much into seeing the things. I just want to go to the places. So I want to do the Maldives. I would love to do Truck Lagoon. I'd like to go see the World War II wrecks out there. I'd like to go see
Yeah.
the Civil War wrecks.
Check out some U-boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
So
That'd be dope.
that's my bucket list.
I love that the whale shark is like the common ground for divers for bucket list animals. It really is. Although I will say, this last trip that Matt and I had to Dana Point, which is a special place for us because that's where we got married. But we did a dolphin and whale watching excursion again, same company that we had chartered the boat for our wedding. And we came across 2 humpback whales. And I mean, we only saw, their back and their spout. And I mean, we got a double fluke, which was incredible.
Nice.
But after seeing that and kind of learning more about the whale itself, I would love to see one. I would love to share space with one like that, especially when they start singing.
So what you're telling me is you want to go to Alaska to go
Oh, God.
Got to get her a dry suit.
You have to have more than a dry suit.
heated vest.
He did everything.
Yeah.
And I'm giving you 5 minutes and then I'm out.
That's where the air hog comes back.
Yeah. No, it'd be so cold. All my joints will seize up and I'll be starfish down there.
All right. Well, let's
See him in California.
let's wrap this up. We've talked about first experience, first ocean, first non-ocean related cenotes. Am I right?
Am I right?
Yeah.
We talked about bucket lists, animals, places.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Mash that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more.
I can follow. The YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
We should probably give them that information and Facebook information, Instagram information. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye now.